The sun was setting over the mountains, casting a golden glow over the luxurious spa resort we had chosen to celebrate our 5th anniversary. Mia and I had worked so hard this past year that we felt we deserved this escape. Our suite was as perfect as the brochure had promised, and I was eager to dive into our plans. We started with relaxation, massages, facials, and the kind of pampering that leaves you feeling like royalty. Mia, however, seemed restless. She smiled politely but appeared distant. When I mentioned the cocktail-making class, she sighed and said she would rather skip it. I insisted she join me for the experience, thinking it would be a fun distraction for both of us. The class was led by Michael, a charismatic bartender whose charm was as smooth as the cocktails he crafted. His presence was magnetic, and I could see Mia's eyes light up as he spoke. I attributed her sudden interest to the excitement of learning something new. As the class went on, I noticed Michael and Mia chatting more than the others. His easy laughter seemed to draw her in, and a small knot formed in my stomach. When the class ended, I decided to let Mia relax in our room while I stayed to chat with Michael. We discussed cocktails and life, and I noticed how Michael seemed particularly keen on keeping Mia engaged. His demeanor was that of someone who knew how to captivate an audience, and it didn't escape my notice that Mia was his most attentive listener. As days went by, the resort's activities continued. Mia's interest in Michael seemed to grow, and she often spoke of him with a sparkle in her eye. I brushed it off as harmless enthusiasm until I found myself checking my phone on a quiet evening. A series of messages from Michael to Mia popped up, full of flirtatious comments and suggestive undertones. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. My wife was having an affair. Every message was a dagger to my heart, and the thought of how easily she had succumbed to Michael's charm made my blood boil. I had to do something. I couldn't let this betrayal slide without making it known. The idea of exposing them at the cocktail party, where Michael would be in his element, seemed both fitting and poetic. I wanted everyone to see what had happened, to witness the truth laid bare. The evening of the cocktail party arrived, and the atmosphere was buzzing with anticipation. Michael was his usual confident self, dazzling the guests with his skills and charm. I waited until the moment felt right, my heart pounding as I prepared to confront the betrayal. Taking the microphone, I made my way to the center of the room. The chatter quieted as I began to speak. I spoke about the pain of discovering a betrayal, about the trust that had been shattered. I could see Mia's face turn pale as I detailed the messages Michael had sent her. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but the room was silent, the guests listening to every word. The look on Michael's face was a mix of shock and irritation as he tried to play it cool, but the damage was done. Mia was sobbing, and Michael, unable to handle the public scrutiny, excused himself and left the party. The aftermath was a blur of accusations, apologies, and shattered illusions. Mia tried to explain, but her words felt hollow against the evidence I had presented. The joy of our anniversary celebration had been replaced by the harsh reality of betrayal and disgrace. As we left the resort and returned to our daily lives, the pain of what had transpired was a constant, gnawing presence. The once sweet memories of our anniversary were now tainted by the ultimate betrayal. The drive home was eerily quiet. Mia sat beside me, her eyes fixed on the passing scenery, while I clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The betrayal still felt raw, the pain of her infidelity a constant, throbbing ache in my chest. I was determined to make sense of everything that had happened, but all I could think about was the moment Michael had left the party, and how the room had felt like it was closing in on me. When we arrived back at our house, the familiar surroundings felt strangely foreign. I could see our home as a monument to the trust that had been shattered. Every corner, every picture, every piece of furniture now seemed to mock me with memories of happier times. I was desperate for answers, for understanding, but mostly for a way to navigate through the wreckage that our relationship had become. Mia was silent as we unloaded the car. She avoided eye contact and moved with a sort of robotic efficiency, as if trying to make herself invisible. I wanted to confront her, to scream and yell, but the weight of the situation rendered me speechless. What could I possibly say that would make any of this better? Once we were inside, I asked Mia to sit down in the living room. I needed to hear her side of the story, to understand why she had done this to us. Her face was red and tear-streaked, and her voice trembled as she began to speak. I didn't plan for any of this to happen, she started, her eyes welling up with tears. I was just bored and wanted something different. Michael was charming, and I got caught up in it. Her words seemed to tumble out in a frantic rush, and I could hardly believe what I was hearing. She continued to explain how she felt disconnected from me, how the monotony of our daily lives had pushed her to seek excitement elsewhere. Her excuses sounded weak, almost rehearsed. I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of betrayal. Every word she spoke was like another stab to my heart. Are you saying this is all my fault? I finally managed to ask, the hurt evident in my voice. Because if you were unhappy, why didn't you talk to me? Why did you turn to someone else instead of working through it together? Mia's response was a mix of apologies and justifications. She said she had tried to communicate but felt unheard, and that Michael's attention had seemed like an escape. But as she spoke, it became clear that her words were not justifications but attempts to alleviate her own guilt. The conversation didn't resolve anything. It was like trying to mend a shattered vase with glue. It just wasn't possible to fix the damage that had been done. The more Mia tried to explain, the more I felt like I was slipping into a void of confusion and hurt. That night, we slept in separate rooms. The bed I had shared with Mia felt like a cruel reminder of our broken trust. I lay awake for hours, replaying the events of the past few days, trying to piece together how everything had unraveled so quickly. The next morning, everything seemed surreal. The world outside looked normal, but our little bubble of happiness had burst. As we went through the motions of our daily routine, there was a heavy silence between us. Every glance, every word, felt charged with the weight of what had happened. Mia seemed to be searching for a way to mend things, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive or even understand what had gone wrong. The ultimate question loomed large: could we move past this, or was our relationship irreparably damaged? The days that followed were filled with tense conversations and uncomfortable silences. The process of rebuilding, or deciding whether it was even possible, was the hardest thing I had ever faced. The idyllic getaway meant to celebrate our love had turned into a battleground, and the ultimate challenge now was finding a path forward, if there was one to be found. The days after our return from the resort dragged on with an oppressive heaviness. Mia and I found ourselves navigating a new and uncomfortable reality. The house, once a haven of shared memories, now felt like a maze of unresolved emotions and unspoken questions. Every day seemed to stretch endlessly as we tried to process what had happened and what it meant for our future. One evening, as the autumn leaves fell outside and the air grew colder, Mia suggested we see a marriage counselor. Her suggestion was met with a mix of relief and skepticism. On one hand, it was clear that we needed professional help to unravel the mess we were in. On the other, I wasn't sure if therapy could undo the damage of betrayal. We scheduled our first appointment with a well-regarded therapist named Dr. Hill. The session was awkward and filled with strained politeness. Mia and I took turns explaining our perspectives. But the counselor's questions only seemed to dig deeper into the wounds we were struggling to heal. Dr. Hill listened intently, her expression one of empathetic concentration. She asked questions about our relationship history, our current feelings, and our expectations. Mia spoke of her sense of isolation and how she had sought validation from Michael, while I shared my feelings of betrayal and confusion. Yet, every time we seemed to make progress, our old wounds would reopen, and the conversation would circle back to the same painful points. In the days between therapy sessions, we attempted to carry on with our lives, but the tension was palpable. Mia tried to reintroduce some semblance of normalcy, suggesting we go out for dinners or take walks. I reluctantly agreed, but each outing felt like a thinly veiled attempt to mask the issues that lay beneath. One evening, as we sat across from each other at a quiet restaurant, Mia reached out and touched my hand. Her gesture was a stark contrast to the tense silence that had characterized our interactions. "I know things are hard right now," she said softly, "but I really want to make this work. I want us to find a way to rebuild what we had." Her words, though sincere, felt hollow. I wanted to believe her, but trust, once broken, is difficult to restore. My mind was a tumult of conflicting emotions: love, anger, doubt. I could see she was trying, but the damage inflicted by her affair had left me questioning everything we had built together. As we continued with therapy, Dr. Hill encouraged us to focus on rebuilding trust through small, consistent actions. She suggested creating a new routine together, setting goals for our relationship, and being open and honest about our feelings. We worked on these tasks with varying degrees of success, but the process was slow and fraught with setbacks. One particularly tough session revealed the depth of Mia's remorse. She broke down as she described her feelings of guilt and regret. Her tears were a painful reminder of how far we had fallen from the life we had once shared. I struggled to reconcile this version of Mia with the one who had betrayed me. The journey through therapy was both grueling and enlightening. I began to see the complexities of our relationship more clearly, understanding that while Mia's actions had been a severe breach of trust, they were not the sole cause of our problems. Our conversations had often skirted around deeper issues that needed addressing. Months passed, and though the process was arduous, some small glimmers of progress began to appear. We started to communicate more openly, slowly rebuilding our connection. It wasn't a quick fix, and there were days when the weight of what had happened felt unbearable. But we both knew that if there was any hope of salvaging our marriage, it would come from facing our problems together. Every day was a step towards recovery, though not always a forward one. The path was riddled with emotional landmines, but with each therapy session and honest conversation, we moved a little closer to understanding each other and, perhaps, to healing. The longer we continued with therapy, the more we faced the stark reality of our situation. Each session peeled back layers of our relationship, revealing issues that had long been buried. As difficult as it was to confront these problems, I began to see a glimmer of hope. Rebuilding trust was an arduous process, but both Mia and I were committed to trying. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, Mia suggested we try something new, something that might help us reconnect. She proposed a weekend getaway to a nearby town, suggesting it could be a fresh start away from the memories of our recent struggles. I hesitated, unsure if stepping away from our daily routines was a good idea. But the thought of breaking out of our current stagnation was tempting, so I reluctantly agreed. The weekend arrived, and as we drove to the quaint town, I was struck by how different the landscape was from our usual surroundings. The scenery was picturesque, with rolling hills and charming cottages. It felt almost like we were stepping into a different world, one where we could temporarily escape our troubles. We checked into a cozy bed and breakfast, which had a welcoming, homely feel. The owners were friendly, and their warmth was a pleasant contrast to the cold distance we had been feeling in our own home. We spent our days exploring local shops, hiking through scenic trails, and enjoying leisurely meals at small, intimate restaurants. One morning, as we walked hand in hand through a quiet park, Mia stopped and looked at me with a serious expression. "I want to talk about something," she said, her voice steady but emotional. I nodded, bracing myself for what was to come. "I know I've hurt you deeply," she began, "and I'm trying every day to make things right. But I need to know if there's still a chance for us. I want to know if you're willing to fight for our marriage." Her question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of our past. I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I want to believe that we can fix this," I admitted. "But it's not just about me wanting to fight. We both need to put in the effort, and it can't be just about repairing the damage. It has to be about building something new." We spent the rest of the day reflecting on our conversation. The picturesque setting seemed to offer a temporary reprieve from our emotional turmoil, allowing us to think more clearly about our future. As the weekend came to a close, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had made some progress, but it was clear that the road ahead would be long and challenging. Back home, the daily grind resumed, but our weekend away had provided a new perspective. We began to focus more on the small, positive changes we could make in our relationship. We set aside dedicated time for each other, worked on improving our communication, and tried to reintroduce moments of joy and intimacy into our lives. Therapy continued to be a crucial part of our journey. We were learning to address underlying issues and to understand each other's needs more deeply. The sessions became less about rehashing past betrayals and more about exploring ways to strengthen our bond. Despite the progress, setbacks were inevitable. There were days when old insecurities resurfaced, and the shadows of the past loomed large. But we were learning to navigate these challenges together, finding ways to support each other and to rebuild the trust that had been so severely damaged. Our journey was far from over, but with each step, we were forging a new path. The ultimate goal was no longer just about recovering what we had lost but about creating a more resilient and understanding relationship. It was a daunting task, but both of us were committed to the process, hopeful that, in time, we could emerge stronger and more connected than before. Life, in its relentless march, has a way of testing even the most steadfast resolve. As Mia and I continued to rebuild our relationship, it became clear that our journey was far from linear. There were moments of genuine connection and growth, but also days that felt like setbacks, reminders of the trust that was still fragile. One evening, a few months after our weekend getaway, I came home to find Mia unusually quiet. She was sitting at the kitchen table, a half-finished cup of tea in front of her, staring into the distance. Her silence was unsettling, a stark contrast to the progress we had been making. "Hey, what's wrong?" I asked, my voice laced with concern. I sat down across from her, trying to read the expression on her face. Mia sighed deeply and met my gaze. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened and about us," she began. "I know we've been trying to fix things, but I feel like there are still so many unresolved issues. Sometimes, it feels like we're just putting a band-aid on a deep wound." Her words hit me hard. I knew we had made progress, but the realization that our issues still loomed large was disheartening. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to understand her perspective. "I mean," she continued, "that I feel like we're not addressing the root causes of our problems. We're dealing with the symptoms. But we haven't fully explored why we ended up here in the first place." The conversation that followed was one of the most intense we'd had in a long time. We began to dig into the deeper issues that had contributed to our breakdown. Mia spoke about her feelings of isolation and the lack of communication that had plagued our marriage. I admitted to my own shortcomings and the ways I had failed to recognize her needs. As the weeks went by, our therapy sessions began to focus more on these underlying issues. Dr. Hill guided us through exercises designed to help us understand each other better and to address the core problems that had led to our estrangement. We learned about the patterns in our relationship that had contributed to our conflict and began to work on changing them. Despite our efforts, it was impossible to ignore the lingering pain from the affair. The trust we were trying to rebuild was often tested by old insecurities and doubts. I found myself grappling with moments of jealousy and suspicion, even though I was committed to moving forward. One night, after a particularly challenging therapy session, Mia and I sat on the porch, watching the stars. The quiet night seemed to offer a reprieve from the emotional chaos of the past few months. "Do you ever wonder if we're just kidding ourselves?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mia turned to me, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Sometimes I do," she admitted. "But then I remember why we started this journey. I remember the good times we shared and the love we still have for each other. It's not about forgetting what happened, it's about learning from it and trying to build something new." Her words provided a glimmer of hope. It was a reminder that our efforts were not in vain, even if the process was difficult and uncertain. We were learning to navigate our relationship with a new perspective, understanding that true healing required confronting our past while striving to create a better future. As we continued our journey, we began to find small victories in our daily interactions. There were moments of genuine connection and laughter, signs that our efforts were making a difference. We still faced challenges, and there were days when it felt like we were taking one step forward and two steps back. But each day, we learned a little more about ourselves and each other. Our path to recovery was far from straightforward, but the commitment we both had to making things work was a powerful force. We were beginning to see that rebuilding our relationship wasn't just about overcoming the past. It was about embracing the possibility of a renewed, stronger connection. The months passed, and with each day, Mia and I worked hard to navigate the complexities of our renewed relationship. The daily grind of rebuilding trust continued, but there were moments when it felt like we were making real progress. We had begun to create new routines and found ways to connect on a deeper level, but old habits and insecurities still cast long shadows over our efforts. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, Mia brought up an idea that caught me off guard. "I've been thinking," she said, "about doing something special together. Something that reminds us of who we were before everything fell apart. What if we took a short trip, just the two of us, to a place that means something to us?" Her suggestion was both intriguing and daunting. We hadn't been on a trip together since the resort disaster, and the idea of revisiting our past seemed both comforting and risky. I agreed to consider it, and we decided to plan a weekend getaway to a small, secluded cabin we had visited early in our relationship. It was a place full of happy memories and the kind of retreat where we could focus on each other without distractions. As the day of our trip approached, there was a sense of cautious optimism. We packed our bags, choosing to focus on the positive aspects of our journey. The cabin was nestled in a tranquil forest, surrounded by nature's serenity. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where we could escape the pressures of everyday life and reconnect on a meaningful level. When we arrived, the cabin was just as charming as we remembered. The cozy interior, with its warm fireplace and comfortable furnishings, was inviting. We settled in and began to unwind, enjoying the simplicity of our surroundings. The first evening was spent in comfortable silence, as we sat by the fire, reminiscing about the early days of our relationship. The following day, we ventured out for a hike on a trail we had walked together years before. The familiarity of the trail and the beauty of the landscape stirred up a mixture of nostalgia and hope. As we walked side by side, the conversation flowed more easily than it had in recent months. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and the lessons we had learned. It was a welcome change from the heavy discussions we had been having in therapy. Later that day, as we relaxed on the cabin's porch, Mia took my hand and looked into my eyes. "I know we still have a long way to go," she said softly, "but I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work. I love you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild what we had." Her words were a balm to my soul. The vulnerability and sincerity in her voice reassured me that she was genuinely invested in our future. It was a moment of clarity and connection that we had been striving for, a glimpse of what could be if we continued to work together. As the weekend came to a close, we returned home with renewed energy and a stronger sense of unity. The trip had provided us with a much-needed break from the routine of our struggles and had allowed us to focus on the positive aspects of our relationship. It was a reminder of the love and connection we had once shared and a testament to our commitment to rebuilding it. Back in our daily lives, the challenges were still present, but there was a newfound sense of hope. We continued with therapy, maintaining the progress we had made in addressing new issues as they arose. The trip had been a turning point, a reminder that, despite the difficulties, we had the capacity to reconnect and rebuild. Our journey was ongoing, filled with ups and downs, but we faced it with a sense of purpose. We were learning to navigate our relationship with patience and understanding, and although the road ahead was uncertain, we were determined to face it together. The weeks following our trip were filled with a cautious optimism. The time away had done wonders for our relationship, providing us with a fresh perspective and renewed commitment. Yet, even with this progress, the weight of the past lingered, occasionally casting shadows over our efforts. One Saturday, as I was running errands, I received a phone call from an unknown number. When I answered, the voice on the other end was familiar but unexpected. It was Michael, the bartender from the spa resort. His call was a jarring reminder of the painful chapter we had worked so hard to move beyond. "Hi, Thomas," Michael said, his tone surprisingly calm. "I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out because I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I wanted to apologize for my part in it." I was caught off guard. Michael's call stirred up a mix of emotions, anger, confusion, and even a touch of disbelief. "I don't know what you're hoping to achieve by calling me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The damage is done, and I'm not interested in reopening old wounds." "I understand," Michael replied. "I just wanted to acknowledge my role in everything. I've been dealing with my own regrets and wanted to make amends. I know it doesn't change anything, but I felt like I owed you an apology." His words were unsettling, but I appreciated his attempt at accountability, even if it felt like too little, too late. "Thanks for calling," I said, trying to end the conversation politely. "I hope you understand that Mia and I are working on moving forward, and I'd like to keep the past where it belongs." As I hung up, I felt a surge of relief mixed with residual anger. The call was a reminder of how far we had come and how vulnerable we still were. I shared the conversation with Mia that evening, and her reaction was one of surprise and discomfort. She was grateful for Michael's apology but also felt uneasy about the emotional impact of his call. "We need to focus on us," Mia said, her voice tinged with frustration. "We've made so much progress, and I don't want anything from the past to derail what we're working towards." We agreed to let the call be a reminder of our commitment to each other and to use it as a catalyst for further growth. It was an opportunity to reaffirm our dedication to rebuilding our relationship. Despite the lingering shadows of betrayal. In therapy, we discussed the call and its effects on us. Dr. Hill helped us process our feelings and encouraged us to focus on the present and future rather than being anchored by the past. The session was a sobering reminder of the work still ahead, but it also provided us with strategies to navigate these emotional hurdles. As the weeks turned into months, we continued to build on the progress we had made. We worked on strengthening our communication, setting new goals for our relationship, and finding ways to reconnect with each other on a deeper level. The journey was ongoing, but we faced it with renewed resolve and a stronger bond. Our commitment to therapy and to each other became the cornerstone of our healing process. We faced each day with the understanding that rebuilding trust was a gradual and often difficult endeavor, but one that was worth every effort. The challenges we encountered, including unexpected reminders of the past, served as opportunities to reinforce our dedication and to grow stronger together. In the end, it became clear that the path to recovery was not about erasing the past but about acknowledging it and using it as a foundation for a new beginning. Our journey was far from over, but with each step, we were learning to navigate the complexities of our relationship with greater understanding and compassion. The emotional journey we were on seemed to oscillate between progress and setbacks, each day presenting its own challenges and revelations. Despite the difficulties, Mia and I were committed to forging ahead, determined to build a stronger foundation for our relationship. Yet, as the months passed, it became clear that trust and healing were not just a destination but a continual process. One day, Mia suggested we have a relationship check-in, a term we had picked up from therapy. The idea was to sit down regularly and discuss how we were feeling, our concerns, and any adjustments we needed to make. It sounded like a proactive way to maintain our progress, so I agreed to it. That evening, we sat at the kitchen table with cups of coffee, preparing to dive into what we hoped would be a productive discussion. The conversation started off tentatively, but as we began to open up, it became clear that we had both been holding onto unresolved feelings. Mia started, her voice shaky but resolute. "I've been feeling anxious lately. It's not just about the past, it's about whether we're truly moving in the right direction. Sometimes I wonder if we're just putting on a brave face." Her honesty was both unsettling and refreshing. I had sensed her unease but hadn't fully understood the depth of her feelings. "I've been feeling the same way," I admitted. "It's like we're making progress, but there are days when I question if we're truly addressing the core issues or just skirting around them." We discussed our fears and frustrations in depth, laying bare our insecurities and uncertainties. Mia spoke about her ongoing struggle with guilt and the fear that I might not fully trust her again. I talked about my lingering anger and doubts, worried that our efforts might not be enough to fully restore what had been lost. The conversation was raw and emotional, but it was also cathartic. It allowed us to confront the lingering issues that had been overshadowed by our attempts at moving forward. Dr. Hill had encouraged us to be honest with each other, and this check-in was a testament to that advice. As we continued to talk, we began to recognize patterns in our discussions. We realized that many of our concerns were not just about past betrayals but about deeper issues that had existed even before the affair. This revelation was both enlightening and disheartening, but it underscored the need for continued work. In the days following our check-in, we took actionable steps to address the concerns we had discussed. We re-evaluated our goals for therapy and adjusted our approach to focus more on the underlying issues that had surfaced. We made a concerted effort to communicate more openly and to support each other in a more meaningful way. Despite our best efforts, there were moments of tension and frustration. The journey was not smooth, and there were days when old wounds felt like they were reopening. But each challenge was met with a renewed commitment to working through our issues together. The process of rebuilding our relationship was a continuous cycle of progress and setbacks, but with each step, we were learning more about ourselves and each other. Our relationship check-ins became a valuable tool for maintaining transparency and addressing concerns before they festered. As we moved forward, it became increasingly clear that healing from betrayal was not about achieving a perfect resolution but about continuously working towards understanding, forgiveness, and growth. The path was long and often difficult, but our dedication to each other and our willingness to confront our issues head-on made the journey worthwhile. The future remained uncertain, but there was a sense of hope and determination in our hearts. We were learning to navigate the complexities of our relationship with greater empathy and resilience. The ultimate goal was not just to recover what we had lost but to create something new and enduring, built on a foundation of trust, honesty, and mutual respect. One rainy afternoon, as the sky wept over our suburban neighborhood, Mia and I sat in the living room, caught in the quiet chaos of our thoughts. The weather mirrored the turbulent feelings we were still grappling with, and it felt like the perfect backdrop for a significant conversation that had been brewing for some time. Mia turned to me, her expression serious but resolute. "Thomas, I've been thinking a lot about our future. We've come a long way, and I genuinely want to keep moving forward. But I need to know where you stand." Her words were heavy, laden with the weight of our journey. I knew this conversation was coming, but I wasn't entirely prepared for the emotional depth it demanded. "What do you mean by, where I stand?" I asked, trying to gauge her intent. "I mean," she said slowly, "I want to understand if you see a future for us together. We've worked hard to rebuild what we had, and I need to know if you're committed to continuing this path or if you have doubts about our future." The question struck a chord deep within me. It wasn't just about the present but about our long-term trajectory. We had spent so much time focusing on repairing the damage of the past that I hadn't fully considered what our future might look like. "I've been thinking about that a lot, too," I confessed. "I want to believe in our future, but it's hard not to be cautious. We've made progress, but the scars from what happened are still there. I need to know if we can continue to grow and if we're on the same page about our goals." Mia nodded, her eyes reflecting the sincerity of her emotions. "I understand. I'm committed to working on this, but I also need to know that we're both invested in making it work. We can't move forward if we're not both fully engaged in the process." We spent the next few hours discussing our hopes and fears for the future. We talked about our individual goals, our shared aspirations, and the vision we had for our relationship. It was an open and honest dialogue, one that revealed both the progress we had made and the areas where we still needed to address issues. One key realization was that while we had been focusing on rebuilding trust and improving communication, we hadn't fully addressed our long-term goals as a couple. We needed to have a shared vision for our future to ensure that our efforts to heal were not in vain. As the conversation continued, we outlined specific goals for our relationship. We agreed to prioritize regular check-ins, to be more proactive in supporting each other's personal growth, and to set aside time for shared activities that would strengthen our bond. The discussion was both comforting and challenging. It reaffirmed our commitment to each other while highlighting the areas that needed further work. We realized that our journey was not just about overcoming past hurts but about actively shaping our future together. In the days that followed, we began to implement the plans we had discussed. We started a new routine of weekly meetings to discuss our progress and any concerns that might arise. We also made a concerted effort to support each other's personal goals and to engage in activities that brought us joy and connection. The process was not without its difficulties. There were moments of frustration and doubt, but the shared commitment to our future provided a sense of direction and purpose. We were learning to navigate our relationship with greater clarity and intention. Our journey was ongoing, but the renewed focus on our future brought a sense of hope and optimism. We were beginning to see that rebuilding our relationship was not just about addressing past issues but about actively creating a future that reflected our shared values and dreams. In the end, the conversations we had and the plans we made were a testament to our dedication to each other. We were learning to build a new chapter in our relationship, one that embraced the lessons of the past while forging a path toward a hopeful and fulfilling future. A few months into our renewed efforts, Mia and I found ourselves facing a new set of challenges. The stability we had worked so hard to achieve felt tenuous at times, as if it were built on a foundation that, though strong, was still susceptible to cracks. The real test of our progress came not in grand gestures but in the daily grind of maintaining the trust and connection we had fought so hard to rebuild. One evening, as we were preparing dinner together, Mia received a call from a friend, Karen, whom she hadn't spoken to in a while. The conversation was lighthearted, filled with laughter and updates about life. However, I couldn't shake the unease I felt as I listened to Mia's end of the conversation. Something about the interaction seemed to stir up old insecurities. After Mia hung up, I tried to mask my discomfort. "It sounds like you had a good chat with Karen," I said, forcing a smile. "Yeah, it was nice catching up," Mia replied, her tone cheerful. "We're planning to meet up next weekend. She's been a good friend to me." As we continued preparing dinner, the unease turned into a nagging doubt. My mind raced with thoughts about why I felt unsettled. It wasn't about Karen specifically, it was more about the lingering fears of betrayal and mistrust that still occasionally surfaced. I struggled to reconcile these feelings with the progress we had made. Later that night, as we sat together watching TV, I decided to broach the subject. Mia, I began cautiously, I know we've been working on rebuilding trust. And I'm trying my best to be supportive. But I felt a bit uneasy during your call with Karen. I'm not sure why, but I wanted to be honest about it. Mia looked at me with a mixture of concern and understanding. I appreciate your honesty, she said. It's important for us to talk about these feelings. I understand that trust is something that doesn't come back overnight, and it's okay to have these moments of doubt. We discussed my feelings and the underlying insecurities that had been triggered. Mia reassured me that her friendship with Karen was genuine and that there was nothing to worry about. It was an opportunity to address the lingering doubts and to reaffirm our commitment to open communication. As we talked, I realized that my insecurities were a reflection of the deeper work still needed to fully heal from the betrayal. It wasn't just about confronting the past but also about actively working to build new patterns of trust and security. In therapy, we discussed the evening's events and the feelings they had brought up. Dr. Hill guided us through techniques for managing and addressing these insecurities, emphasizing the importance of maintaining open lines of communication and addressing issues as they arose. We also began exploring ways to reinforce our trust-building efforts. We set specific goals for improving our communication and established routines that helped us feel more connected and secure. These included regular check-ins and creating opportunities for shared experiences that strengthened our bond. The process was challenging, and there were days when old fears resurfaced. But with each step, we were learning to navigate these feelings with greater understanding and compassion. Our commitment to each other and to the process of rebuilding was unwavering, even in the face of new challenges. Through it all, we discovered that the journey of healing and rebuilding trust was ongoing and dynamic. It required not just addressing past issues but also continuously working to strengthen the foundation of our relationship. The challenges we faced were reminders of the importance of maintaining our dedication and actively nurturing our connection. As we moved forward, we found solace in the progress we had made and the strength of our commitment. Each day was a new opportunity to reinforce the trust we were building and to embrace the future we were creating together. Despite the obstacles, there was a growing sense of hope and resilience in our hearts. The months rolled on, bringing with them a mix of small victories and occasional setbacks. The progress Mia and I had made in our relationship felt real, but there were times when it seemed fragile, vulnerable to the whims of our past. Despite the strides we had taken, the task of rebuilding our life together was ongoing and required constant attention. One spring weekend, we decided to take a break from our routine and spend a day outdoors. It was a chance to reconnect in a different way, away from the usual pressures and reminders of our daily life. We chose to visit a nearby botanical garden, a place known for its tranquility and natural beauty. It seemed like the perfect environment to refresh our spirits and enjoy each other's company. As we walked through the garden's winding paths, the vibrant colors and fragrant blooms provided a stark contrast to the emotional landscape we had navigated in recent months. The serenity of the setting offered a sense of peace that was both calming and invigorating. We talked about various topics, from our plans for the future to simple observations about the garden. During a pause by a serene pond, where we watched the ducks glide across the water, Mia turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Thomas," she said softly, "I've been reflecting a lot on our journey. I'm grateful for the progress we've made, but I also know there's still work to be done." Her honesty was a reminder that our path was not merely a linear trajectory but a complex journey with its own set of challenges. "I feel the same way," I admitted. "It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget that rebuilding trust is a continuous process." Mia nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of resolve and vulnerability. "I think we've made significant strides, but it's important to acknowledge that there will always be moments of doubt and insecurity. What matters is how we handle those moments." We spent the rest of the day enjoying the garden, taking in the beauty around us and savoring the simplicity of our time together. The outing was a reminder of the importance of creating and cherishing moments of connection, even amid the ongoing challenges. That evening, as we prepared dinner, we continued our conversation from earlier. We discussed the ways we could maintain our progress and address the challenges that lay ahead. We agreed that while we had made significant progress, it was essential to remain vigilant and proactive in nurturing our relationship. We also talked about our individual growth and how it intertwined with our relationship. Mia expressed her desire to continue pursuing personal interests and passions, while I shared my own aspirations and the need to balance them with our shared goals. Our conversation led to a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. We realized that our journey was not just about healing from past wounds but about actively shaping our future together. We set new goals for our relationship, focusing on enhancing our communication, supporting each other's personal growth, and creating new shared experiences. The following weeks were filled with a mixture of routine and new endeavors. We continued to implement the strategies we had discussed, making a conscious effort to prioritize our relationship while also nurturing our individual aspirations. The process was ongoing, and there were moments of uncertainty, but the shared commitment to our future provided a sense of direction and hope. The challenges we faced were reminders of the complexity of rebuilding trust and the need for continual effort and understanding. Each day presented opportunities to reinforce our connection and address the issues that arose. Through it all, we remained committed to supporting each other and working toward a future built on trust, respect, and shared values. As the seasons changed and we moved forward, the journey of healing and growth continued. The path was not always clear, but our dedication to each other and our willingness to confront and address challenges head-on strengthened our bond. Despite the obstacles, there was a growing sense of optimism and resilience, a testament to the progress we had made and the future we were building together. Summer brought with it a sense of renewal and a chance for Mia and me to solidify the progress we had made. The warmer weather was a welcome change, and we decided to take advantage of it by planning a series of weekend getaways and activities. It was our way of embracing the positive changes and continuing to build our relationship. One of our weekends was spent at a lakeside cabin we had rented for 2 days. The setting was picturesque, with a tranquil lake surrounded by lush forests. It felt like the perfect escape from our usual routine, providing both relaxation and the opportunity to reconnect. On the first evening, as we sat by the lake, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, Mia turned to me with a smile. "This place is amazing," she said. "I'm so glad we decided to come here." "It really is," I agreed, feeling a sense of contentment. "It's nice to have some time away from everything and just focus on us." As the sun dipped below the horizon, we shared our thoughts about our journey and the future. The atmosphere was calm and intimate, encouraging an open and honest conversation. We reflected on how far we had come, acknowledging both the achievements and the areas where we still needed work. Mia spoke about her hopes for our future, emphasizing the importance of continuing to nurture our relationship and support each other's growth. "I want us to keep moving forward," she said. "We've made so much progress. And I believe we can create something truly special together." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for her commitment and the strength of our bond. "I feel the same way," I said. "We've faced so many challenges, but we've come out stronger. I'm excited about what's next for us." The next day, we spent our time hiking along the lake and enjoying the natural beauty of the area. The shared experiences and the simple joy of being together strengthened our connection. We talked about our plans, both big and small, and found ourselves feeling more aligned in our goals and aspirations. Later that evening, as we sat on the cabin's porch, sipping wine and watching the stars, we discussed the importance of maintaining the progress we had made. We recognized that while the recent challenges had been significant, they had also been instrumental in deepening our understanding of each other and strengthening our relationship. We also talked about the need for ongoing effort and vigilance. "It's important to remember that rebuilding trust is a continuous process," Mia said thoughtfully. "We need to keep working at it, even when things seem stable." I agreed, acknowledging that the journey was far from over. "Absolutely. We've made great strides, but we need to stay committed to our goals and continue to support each other." The weekend was a reminder of the beauty of our journey and the importance of celebrating our successes. It was also an opportunity to reflect on the challenges we had overcome and to reaffirm our commitment to each other. As we returned home, we felt a renewed sense of optimism and determination. The getaway had provided us with the space and perspective needed to appreciate the progress we had made and to plan for the future. The days and weeks that followed were filled with a sense of purpose and enthusiasm. We continued to implement the strategies we had discussed, focusing on nurturing our relationship and supporting each other's personal growth. Our journey was ongoing, and we knew that there would be more challenges to face. But the experiences we shared and the progress we had made gave us confidence in our ability to navigate the complexities of our relationship. In the end, the summer getaway was more than just a break from routine. It was a reaffirmation of our commitment to each other and a celebration of the progress we had achieved. It reinforced our belief in the strength of our bond and the potential for a future built on trust, respect, and shared dreams. As autumn began to settle in, Mia and I found ourselves reflecting on the changes and growth we had experienced over the past year. The crisp air and vibrant foliage seemed to symbolize the transformation in our relationship, a mix of lingering remnants from the past and the promise of a new beginning. One Sunday afternoon, we decided to attend a local harvest festival. It was a tradition in our town, a lively event that celebrated the season's bounty with food, music, and activities. We saw it as a chance to enjoy a day out together, engaging in something lighthearted and fun. The festival was bustling with energy. We strolled through rows of stalls filled with homemade crafts, fresh produce, and delicious treats. Mia seemed particularly excited about the artisanal foods and unique gifts. "Look at these handmade candles," she said, picking up a fragrant lavender-scented one. "They're beautiful." "They are," I agreed, appreciating her enthusiasm. "Let's get a few things to take home." As we continued exploring, we came across a booth offering free mini pumpkin carving kits. The sight of them sparked a playful spirit in both of us. "Do you want to carve a pumpkin?" I asked, grinning. "Absolutely," Mia replied, her eyes lighting up. We chose 2 small pumpkins and sat down at a makeshift carving station. As we worked on our creations, we chatted about our plans and dreams, reveling in the simplicity and joy of the moment. It was a reminder of the importance of finding joy in the everyday experiences we shared. As we carved, our conversation shifted to more introspective topics. We began discussing how our relationship had evolved since the betrayal and how the work we had put in had impacted our connection. "I've been thinking about how far we've come," Mia said, her tone reflective. "It's incredible, really." "It is," I agreed. "But it's also a reminder of how much effort and commitment it takes. We've made great progress, but there's still more to do." Mia nodded thoughtfully. "One thing I've realized is that healing isn't a destination. It's an ongoing journey. We need to keep working on our relationship, even when things seem to be going well." Her insight resonated with me. It was a reminder that our journey was far from over and that maintaining our progress required constant attention and effort. The Autumn Festival, with its celebratory and reflective atmosphere, served as a metaphor for the continuous nature of our relationship work. Later, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the festival grounds, we sat on a bench with our finished pumpkins. The event had been a pleasant distraction from the complexities of our journey, but it had also provided valuable insights and reaffirmed our commitment to each other. As we drove home, the festival's vibrant energy lingered in our minds. We talked about how we could continue to infuse our relationship with moments of joy and connection, even amid the ongoing work of rebuilding trust. The experience had been a reminder of the importance of celebrating our progress and finding happiness in the small, everyday moments. Back at home, we placed the pumpkins on our front porch as a symbol of our shared experiences and the growth we had achieved together. The festive, yet reflective nature of the day had deepened our appreciation for each other and the journey we were on. The weeks that followed were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. We continued to build on the progress we had made, focusing on nurturing our relationship and supporting each other's personal growth. The Autumn Festival had been a reminder that, while the journey of healing was ongoing, it was also filled with moments of joy, discovery, and connection. In the end, the experience highlighted the importance of embracing both the challenges and the celebrations along our journey. It was a reminder that our commitment to each other was not just about overcoming the past but also about actively creating a future filled with shared happiness and growth. Winter approached, bringing with it a chill that contrasted sharply with the warmth we had worked to cultivate in our relationship. The early evenings were now dominated by long nights and the soft, persistent snowfall that blanketed our town. The change in season felt symbolic of the ongoing transformation in our lives. We were still navigating the complexities of our renewed relationship, and winter provided an opportunity for reflection and introspection. One particularly snowy weekend, Mia and I decided to take a trip to a nearby mountain resort. It had been a while since we'd had a getaway that wasn't just about repairing or reassessing but about simply enjoying each other's company. The resort promised cozy cabins, stunning views, and an assortment of winter activities. It seemed like the perfect retreat. Upon arrival, the resort was even more enchanting than we had imagined. The snow-covered landscape and the twinkling lights strung along the pathways created a magical atmosphere. We settled into our cabin, which was warm and inviting, with a roaring fire in the fireplace and large windows offering panoramic views of the snowy peaks. Our first day was spent exploring the resort's offerings. We took a leisurely stroll through the snowy trails, enjoying the quiet beauty of the winter landscape. The snow crunched beneath our boots, and the air was crisp and invigorating. We talked about our plans for the coming year and shared our hopes and dreams. As we wandered, Mia stopped to admire a particularly beautiful snow-covered tree. "This reminds me of how our relationship is growing," she said thoughtfully. "It's like the snow, it covers everything, transforming it into something new and beautiful." I looked at the tree and nodded. "I see what you mean. The snow is a blank slate, covering up the old and making way for new growth. It's a good metaphor for where we are right now." That evening, we enjoyed a romantic dinner at the resort's restaurant. The meal was excellent, and the ambiance was perfect for a quiet, intimate conversation. Over dessert, we reflected on the progress we had made and discussed our vision for the future. "I've been thinking a lot about our journey," I said. "It's been challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. I'm grateful for how we've grown together." Mia smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the candlelight. "I feel the same way. We've faced so much, but it's made us stronger. I think we're in a really good place now. And I'm excited about what's ahead." We spent the following days enjoying the resort's activities. We tried ice skating, went sledding, and even attempted a bit of skiing. Each activity was a chance to bond and create new memories. The joy and laughter we shared reminded us of the simple pleasures that strengthened our connection. On our last night, as we sat by the fire in our cabin, we talked about how we could continue to build on our progress. "I want us to keep finding ways to enjoy each other's company and celebrate our successes," Mia said. "We've come so far, and I think it's important to keep nurturing our relationship." I agreed wholeheartedly. "Yes, let's keep making time for each other and focus on the things that bring us joy. Our relationship is a continuous journey, and I'm committed to moving forward with you." The trip had been more than just a getaway. It was a reminder of the importance of cherishing the moments we had together and celebrating our progress. The snowy landscape and the cozy cabin had provided the perfect backdrop for reaffirmation of our commitment to each other and our future. As we returned home, we carried with us a renewed sense of optimism and a deeper appreciation for the journey we were on. The winter trip had not only given us a chance to relax and enjoy each other's company but had also reinforced our shared vision for the future. We were ready to face whatever came next, knowing that our bond was stronger than ever and that we were committed to building a life together filled with love, growth, and shared happiness. Spring arrived with a sense of renewal, and Mia and I welcomed the season's promise of fresh beginnings. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the sounds of birds returning from their winter migration. It felt like an ideal time to take stock of our relationship and set new goals for the future. One weekend, we decided to visit a local botanical garden known for its stunning spring displays. The garden was a celebration of color and life, with vibrant tulips, daffodils, and cherry blossoms in full bloom. As we walked hand in hand through the garden's winding paths, the beauty of our surroundings seemed to reflect the growth and positivity we had cultivated in our relationship. "This place is amazing," Mia said, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's like a living metaphor for how our lives have changed." I couldn't agree more. It really is. It's incredible to see how everything is blossoming and coming to life. It's a reminder of the beauty that can come from nurturing and patience. We spent the day exploring the garden, taking in the sights and sounds, and talking about our dreams for the future. The peaceful environment provided the perfect backdrop for deep conversations about where we saw ourselves in the coming years. At one point, we found a quiet spot near a pond, surrounded by flowering shrubs. We sat down on a bench, watching the ducks swim and listening to the gentle hum of bees. It was a moment of calm reflection amidst the vibrant activity of the garden. "I've been thinking a lot about what's next for us," Mia said softly. "We've worked hard to rebuild our trust and grow together. What do you envision for our future?" I took a deep breath, considering her question carefully. "I envision a future where we continue to support each other's dreams and maintain the strong connection we've built." I want us to keep finding joy in the little things and to keep working on our relationship." Mia smiled, her expression thoughtful. "I feel the same way. I want us to keep growing together, to stay committed to our goals, and to embrace the changes that come our way. I also want us to make sure we're enjoying life and not just focusing on the challenges." We talked about specific goals we wanted to set for ourselves and our relationship. We agreed that continuing to nurture our bond was essential, but we also wanted to ensure we were actively pursuing our individual passions and interests. We discussed ways to integrate these goals into our daily lives and to support each other in achieving them. The visit to the botanical garden was more than just a day out. It was a catalyst for envisioning our future and setting intentions for how we wanted to continue growing together. The natural beauty around us served as a reminder of the importance of nurturing our relationship and celebrating the progress we had made. As we left the garden, we felt a renewed sense of purpose and optimism. The day had reinforced our commitment to each other and provided clarity on how we wanted to move forward. We were excited about the possibilities that lay ahead and ready to embrace the challenges with a shared sense of determination and hope. The spring season continued to bring with it a sense of freshness and renewal, and we carried with us the inspiration and clarity from our visit to the botanical garden. Our journey was ongoing, and we knew that maintaining our progress required continuous effort and dedication. But with the lessons we had learned and the commitment we had reaffirmed, we felt well equipped to face whatever came next. The future was full of possibilities, and as we moved forward, we were guided by the values of love, growth, and mutual support. The spring had symbolized not just a new season but a new chapter in our lives, one filled with promise and potential for continued happiness and fulfillment together.